Okay, so let's create our new blank project in Unreal with the name Desert. I will close our new project right now because I would like to duplicate a few stuff from the other project to our new desert project. So I've duplicated asphalt and spheres, and right now I'm pasting this into our desert content. After running our desert project, we should see inside two folders, asphalt and spheres. So right now this is our standard fresh scene, but I would like to start completely from scratch, so I am creating now a new empty level. We will put here in the darkness a standard BSP box. I will make it, of course, a little bit bigger because we need to put some other stuff on the top of this. And let's see what we've got inside these spheres. We've got, of course, our wheel low poly. I will be duplicating this. You can duplicate your object just by pressing Alt and moving the object. So of course I've choose wheels because it's a little more complex than a basic sphere. I will create a 6 of these wheels and I will put different materials on them. I will of course group this stuff here in World Outliner just to have more space. You can see I've created in QXL Suite an asphalt material and I can apply this material to this BSP. And I can create a light. In this case we will create a directional light. I will change the direction of this light. And right now we can check these materials, and I would like to open each of this material and check if everything is okay, because sometimes the textures are broken. So this one is gray 80% material and everything is okay with this one. So let's apply this to our first wheel. The second one should be a 50% gray material, and you can see the texture is broken, so I will load a correct texture. In this case is 50% gray test texture. We can click apply and then save, and of course put this one on the second wheel. Next material, it's fine, it's just a white, 100% white material. Next is 100% reflection material, and of course we have to load new texture. It will be white 100%, which is connected to the base color. So if we will apply this one, you can see that we have 100% reflections on this surface. The next one is 50% roughness. Roughness 50% texture is applied to this material. And the last one is just the same as the third one. It's just white because we have connected 0 to our metal and specular. So I will use these spheres just to see how our scene is looking. Let's add right now a BP sky sphere, and you can see we already have a sky. And we can connect our directional light to this sky. So if we will change the direction of this directional light, our sky will update. So let's do this right now. You can see I've rotated our directional light, and if I will go to the sky sphere and click refresh material, the position of the sky is updating, and also the colors of the sky are changing accordingly. So next let's add a skylight to get some additional sky light effect. We can add sphere reflection capture to make our reflections a little bit better. For now I will just add one, but if we have a bigger layer we should add more of these spheres. Next we can add exponential height fog. You can see turning it off and on, it's making a pretty much difference. Of course you can change fog intensity. You will be able to see this effect a little bit better once we will create the landscape. And we will also add atmospheric fog, which is adding a little bit of fog to the sky. And of course we should remember to add light mass importance volume. Let's make it bigger, of course. And I will also add a post-process volume, and we should also make it bigger. And of course we can add player start just to know the position where we are going to start our game when hitting play. Of course we can fly around the objects, around the scene, and we can't walk because we didn't create yet any walking controls. We can group everything, of course, and put a level staff name for this group. We have here all fogs, post processes, light mass, lights, and stuff like this. When I'm starting, I tend to turn off my ambient occlusion completely. I am turning it on later when I have almost everything done and I want to work a little bit better on the final look. And auto exposure, you can play a little bit with this. If you feel that your scene is too dark, you can play a little bit with the exposure bias. And usually I'm setting minimum brightness and max brightness to the same number, for example 1. In this case I am just giving a minimum brightness of 0.5. And of course we can build lighting to see the results. So everything looks pretty nice. Of course I will be using scene color, a little bit of fringe effect and vignette. Of course I will be turning them on at the end. Of course I will use also color grading. I will load a loot table, and you can see you've got plenty of other effects that you can explore and see how they work. Of course you can change the opacity of the clouds, and you can change also speed of the clouds, and usually I'm changing cloud speed to a little bit higher number just to make the sky look a little bit more realistic, to add more life to the scene. It's also better if something is moving than it's completely static. Good, so let's start creating our landscape. Of course you can just click create if you are happy with your options. Of course you can change them if you want. In this case I will just go with default options, which are pretty good for me. I will hit create, and I can already start sculpting my environment, my landscape. We can change our brush to smooth our terrain. So you can see our landscape is pretty huge. I will just create a basic material for the landscape, which will be just a constant tree vector, so it will be just a RGB color. Okay, so to get rid of these black lines, we have to, of course, rebuild our light. And you can see after rebuilding, these lights are gone. Of course, we should make our post-process volume a little bit bigger to cover more of this scene, and also the light mass importance volume should be bigger also. Okay, so right now when we have this basic landscape, we can modify a little bit our exponential height fog to something a little bit different that will allow us to blend the sky a little bit better with the ground, with the sand, with the desert. So I've modified the fog color and the fog density, and now I think the result is better. Okay, so now it's the time to export our vehicle, and you should remember that we need separate materials, for example, for the wheels, separate material for the main body of the vehicle, also a separate material for the inside elements of the vehicle, because for now we have this texture in two parts, one for the outside elements and second one for the inside elements. Of course, at the end I will combine both textures into one. And of course we need a separate materials for the lights, and if it's about lights we need separate materials for the inside elements of the lights and for the outside elements of the lights. Of course we need separate material for the engine, and like I said, these lights elements, outside elements, and the inside elements. So for the lights we will have 4 separate materials. So right now we can select everything and export this as a FBX. I will put a name vehicle main open, and of course I have second version for the doors closed and with straight wheels. So let's go back to Unreal and let's create a new folder called vehicle. And let's move it outside of this asphalt folder, and let's bring our model first. And I will import it as a skeletal mesh. We don't have any skeletal bones in here, but because we didn't rig the car yet, so but we can anyway click import it as a skeletal mesh, so it's not a problem. Okay, so you can see we've got vehicle main and this is our vehicle with all these materials that we have to create. We also have a physical asset and a skeleton for this vehicle, but we are not using this currently. Of course, it's good to turn off all these post processes, for example this fringe effect, because they can be a little bit annoying during the scene assembly. So to see everything a little bit better, I am turning this off. So this is our vehicle, everything is on the position. Of course, you can see we need also separate material for the blanket and for the cans that are on the back of the vehicle. But for now, let's create two simple materials without any special effects for the wheels and for the main body. So I will go to the folder of the wheels and I will import wheel A, N and R for the albedo, normal and roughness. Oh, at the beginning, of course, we should open our roughness texture and turn off the sRGB. You can see we have all these channels, so blue is for the ambient occlusion, green is for the metalness and red is for our roughness. And right now we can create material, wheel material, and this is very simple. Put a texture sample, you can press T on your keyboard and left mouse button click and connect these textures to the appropriate slots. So the first is for the base color, the second one and the last one is normal map. So blue channel to the ambient occlusion, red channel to the roughness and the green channel to the metallic. Apply and save. Of course, right now it's good to figure out which is where we have to apply our wheel material. This is the element 7, and we can type wheel material matte and this is done. So let's bring right now textures for the main body of the vehicle. Of course, let's open the roughness texture and turn off sRGB. And let's create a material. And for the main body we can use element 0. Of course, here in this viewer we don't have a skylight, so everything looks pretty dark. So let's check how this model will look like on our scene. Yeah, now it looks like the skylight intensity is a little bit too heavy. I will also duplicate this sphere reflection capture, so we will have two on our scene. And I will go to the skylight intensity and I will bring it down a little bit. So 0.8 should be fine. So you can see I can't fly to the inside because we have physical assets assigned to this model. Let's open our mesh, skeletal mesh, and let's disable this physical asset just by cleaning this one. And right now I can fly to the inside of the vehicle. It's easier when we are creating textures to see everything closely. So right now we have to create all these materials for the engine, for the inside elements, and of course for the blanket, cams and lights. I will do this for you, and we will do in next part little breakdown how these materials works. I will explain everything, and that's it. Okay, so let's see what we've built here on the top of our desert level. You can see I've created a little bit more advanced desert, but it's still pretty simple because I didn't want to spend too much time on it. It's just because I wanted some kind of simple environment for presentation of this for this vehicle. But if we've already created this desert, I will show you how it's done. Of course, we've used landscape to create it. Later I've imported some metal parts, and using a foliage painting system I've put some of these elements on the surface of the desert. And also we've got some stones, rocks and things like this. Let's really quickly talk about the material of this desert. Let's just find it in our content browser. Okay, here it is, sands 2 and sands 2 instance. Of course, in the instance We have exposed some parameters that we can change. It's of course the color and overlay color, which I'm not using right now, and of course intensity for the normal maps. So if we can go here for example, and we can change the color of the sun, so you can see it's instantly changing in the viewport. If I will increase the intensity of the normal map, you can see it's also updating. Let's put a default value and check this. Okay, so let's go actually into the master material and see how our layers looks like. And this is a landscape material, so we have here node called layer, and you can see we've got name of the layer, here is base, and the next slot is layer. And we have three materials, three layers, and of course three layers are for the base color, and same three layers are for the roughness, and of course three layers we've got also for the normal map. So let's explore this tree a little bit. So as a base I am using just a default basic very simple sand material. Let's open this texture to show you sand 2. This is just very simple clean sand material. It has roughness, of course, texture, and the normal map texture. Let's show the normal map for this. It's here. So you can see it's pretty simple, but we have just some details in here. So the first layer here is actually two materials blended together using a lerp node, and as an alpha I am using just a noise generator. So the first layer are just two materials blended together with the lerp with a same texture as an albedo, but a different texture in the normal maps. So you can see here it's pretty similar setup for the normal map. We've got first layer, lerp. This is our normal map for the first sand material, and this is our normal map for the second material, sand material. This is how it looks. So you can see on our level that we have here, for example, a pretty smooth sand, but a little bit further here we've got all these little bumps and stuff like this. So this is the second normal map displaying, but the albedo and the roughness values are the same for both this one and this one. So we get a little bit of variation on the surface of this sand. And this is the layer number 1. The layer number 2 here are just these pebbles. Let's explore this texture a little bit. You can see in the albedo that we've got also the same sand albedo material, same albedo texture like in the layer number 1, but I've also added these stones. And of course we've got a normal map for this and the roughness texture. Okay, so the last one layer, the third layer, is using also the same sand texture, but we are changing here a normal map, and the normal map, you can see we've got here little waves that are scaled pretty high, so we can get on the surface these pretty huge waves of sand. And of course the roughness for this it's similar like for the first layer. Here we've got of course parameter that we can change. We can change color by using this parameter, and it's also connected to the first layer, for the second layer, and for the third layer. It's of course connected only to the albedo. And one more thing, of course, this is responsible for the texture, for the normal map intensity, and here is the parameter that we can change of course in our instance material. So that's it. Let's switch to the level, and I will show you in some places how we can paint. Let's maybe go here, and you can see we've got a couple of these waves here. Let's just switch to landscape and to the paint mode, and you can see we've got here 3 materials. These are 3 layers that we've created in the sand to master material. So if I will click on this first one, I will be able to paint directly on the surface this first material called 2 and 3. So let's do this, and you can see I'm getting some of these little details. If I will change it to 4 and paint, I will be getting some of these stones. And the layer called 1, we can paint these huge waves of the sand. Of course you can add as many layers to this kind of material, as many as you want, but of course it will affect your performance So that's it. Let's move forward with this. Okay, so let's talk a little bit right now about this road. You can see that there is a little problem with this because we've got this ugly seam, these ugly seams on the both sides of the road. That's because this road is just a simple mesh created in Maya and imported here into Unreal. And of course I've put this mesh just on the surface of the sand, so it's not blending with the sand correctly. If I would be doing this differently, I would just probably create this whole environment, this whole desert as a one or maybe few meshes in Maya rather than using a landscape, because right now, as you can see, we can't do really something about these seams. So anyway, it's good enough for the presentation because we can get rid of these seams in the Photoshop, but if this would be for a game, we should be do something about this. But for now it's okay. Let's right now talk a little bit about the material that is applied for the road. You can see we still have a little bit of tiling when we are looking from the distance, but when we are on the level of the vehicle, it's pretty okay. So let's maybe explore the material itself. We've got here road material 2 and road material 2 instance. Of course, in the material instance, as usual, we've got some parameters. We can change the color of the sand, and we can change 1 and 2 parameters that are allowing us to change the opacity of the sand on the road. So let's play a little bit with this right now. So these two actually control the opacity of the sand, the opacity of the tracks that are lying on this road. So you can see we can make them more visible or just completely less visible, so they are removing the sand from the road. So let's close this one. Okay, so before we will explore road material to master material, let's switch to Maya. And here in Maya we've got a model of this road. With the texture actually applied to the color. And this texture was created into a QXL suite, and I will show you how to do this. Let's see how our UVs are done. Of course, each part of the road, it's mapped here, so it's a square texture, and it's of course duplicated all over the road. Like I said, the texture was created in QXL, and I've created something like this. just a very simple plane. I want to make sure that everything is on the grid. And of course make sure that your UVs are also on the grid, like this. And I've just duplicated this one and merge. So I've done this because I really want to see how my seam line is looking while texturing. So this kind of element I've exported and imported into Quixel Suite for the texturing. And one more thing, let's open these UVs and let's switch to the second channel because it's pretty important. Here is the third channel for the light map, and the second channel you can see we've got this kind of we have this kind of UVs, and we will use a track mask that will be using this second UV channel. So let's right now switch to the Quixel Suite and I will show you how to texture this road. Okay, so actually for the road texturing I was using this mesh. We have here 3 squares rather than 2, so I've exported this one. And let's switch to Photoshop and Dido and let's do the texturing work. We can load our mesh and we don't need any textures for this one. Let's just set resolution and let's pick the project location. And let's hit create. Let's turn on 3Do. Let's switch our post-process to Unreal Engine. And here we go. Okay, so let's start from a simple asphalt material. Let's duplicate it. And let's apply a Dynamask. And let's turn on a secondary texture. Let's pick leaking 01 and let's check invert mask and let's click accept for now. Okay, I forgot to set this texture blending mode to normal. So let's check our texture is, our mask is done correctly now. Let's accept mask. And let's actually, for this lower layer, turn off normal map completely. And for this upper, let's change the blending mode to normal. Or let's leave it maybe for. Let's press 4 to see changes. And it's correctly done. Let's switch to the albedo. And for this lower asphalt mask, let's bring albedo texture intensity to 0. And let's also go to the roughness and let's increase the roughness value to something like this. Okay, looks good. We can scale these asphalt textures. And let's create a rust material because I would like to blend this one with the asphalt that is below. So let's set a blending mode to maybe overlay. But not in roughness. I only want this done to the albedo. So I think it looks good. We can add a sound right now. Let's group this. And let's create a sound material. Of course, let's scale it. Let's bring a normal intensity a little bit down. And of course we should set it to normal because it's blending with the normal map that is below. Okay. And the albedo intensity also I would like to take a little bit down. Okay. Maybe modify a color just a little bit. And right now we can enter Dynamask editor. And you can see if I paint on the one cube, the rest get the same results. Right now I will just grab a dirt brush and I will remove some of this. Or maybe not this way. Let's maybe add a texture first. And I will be adding this one. Yeah, this one. Let's set it to normal. And let's modify it a little bit. And I will also add this one. Let's scale this up. And I am choosing just add blending mode. Okay, so right now we can grab this brush and we have to check the mask, and we will be painting with white on the both sides. We can of course try to remove the sand in the places where the seams are to get a better results. But for doing this I will change my brush to something like this. And we can try manually adjust the sound. Okay, so here it is. We can bring this normal map a little bit down. Okay, so we can export our textures, but more important, we can export also our masks. To export this mask, we can just right click and export masks. So right now we can go back to Unreal, and knowing how this road texture was done, you will be able probably better understand how this master material was created. So of course you can see here I have clean asphalt texture, clean sand texture, and I have parameter, and I am multiplying it by this sand material to control its color. And of course I have alpha here in this layer connected that will control where the sand is and where it's not. And this is the alpha generator. Of course here you can see that this is our mask that we've exported, and we have also control over the sand by this node and this value. Currently it's set to 1 and it's not parameter that is exposed in material instance, but of course you can do this. Setting this value to lower number will allow you to remove sand completely from the road, but of course you have to create this kind of mask for this. And also here we have a noise that is controlling, that is actually breaking the sand over the over its size. And here of course we've got noise node that it's breaking the surface of the sand a little bit, so it doesn't look very repetitive. So and here at the end of course we've got clamp that is clamping values from 0 to 1, and more important here we've got tracks. We've got texture that contains tracks, and important thing is that we have to set texture coordinates and choose a coordinate index set to 1, because 0 is our first UV set and the number 1 is our second UV set that we've created in Maya. Of course we've got another UV set, but it's reserved for the light map. So we have two parameters that are controlling these tracks. Let's maybe explore this texture a little bit. Of course you can see that in each channel I have different tracks, so I can do a little bit mix with these layers. So this one is added to this first mask and so on. Of course this mask is controlling also the roughness and the AO and the normals. And that's it really. To understand it a little bit better, of course I encourage you to download the project files, this scene, and take a look, play with it. I'm sure that you will do probably a better job than I did here.